Thank you all for being here. As you all know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on here at the Little Rock Police Department is transparency and the 21st century policing pillars. It is important to us to speak with you all today regarding our current policy updates related to no-knock warrants. Staff has worked really hard on this. We want to make sure that we answer every question that citizens may have. We want citizens to be rest assured our main focus is their safety. And so at this time, I would like to introduce Captain Ken Temple, who is the captain over our Special Investigations Division. He is going to make a presentation regarding the changes that have been made to our policy.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to stand here and represent the Little Rock Police Department. I want to stress that the Little Rock Police Department is a very professional organization, a progressive organization, and as such, we strive to adhere to the 21st century policing pillars, establish best practices, and any kind of issues that we may observe or are advised of by the public. I want to give you a little background on how the Street Narcotics Unit works. It is primarily complaint driven. Those complaints can range from a variety of different sources, such as Board of Directors, Office of the Chief of Police, anonymous complaints, or complaints, and even division commanders. The Narcotics Unit takes those complaints, they assign them to investigators. Those investigators then go out and they do their job. If you have this packet here with you, I wanted to briefly go over some of the arrests, warrants that we've served from 2018 and 2019. On the left, for 2018, we've had 95 warrants. 57 of those were no-knock, and we had 38 of those were knock and announce. Now, knock and announce strictly means that we will go up to the door, we will knock on and announce police, 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 and we give them a reasonable amount of time before we enter the building or the structure. No knock has to meet certain criteria that we request through the affidavit that is submitted to a judge. The judge signs off on it, and it allows us to use a no knock clause to enter into the buildings. In 2019, year to date, we've had 29 warrants that have been served. Of those, 23 were knock and 6 were no knock. And you can see there is a slight decrease there. And we can attribute that to a couple different things. One is we are trying to focus and get very strong cases on street level dealers out through here. So we're spending a lot of time and effort making sure that the cases are very solid before we try to progress on them. And the other is that we have some federal counterparts who are now helping us out. They're serving a large amount of warrants themselves, and they're doing sweeps of certain areas to help us as far as street narcotics related arrests. So those are some of the reasons why we're seeing a slight decrease. Specifically, I took over on September the 2nd, 2017, and we began to look at our established divisional operating procedures. We began to look for places we could improve to adhere to, once again, the 21st century policing pillars and establish best practices across the country. We began to look at some of our DOPs, and one in particular, if you guys will go to that page, it's labeled Use and Monitoring of Cooperating Individuals, and that is a divisional operating procedure 5100-8. We recognized that we had a issue, or we had an area where we could improve as far as dealing with our cooperating individuals, or CIs. We collectively as a unit out there and as a division researched amongst other agencies across the nation to see if we could borrow from them to come up with some policies that would enhance our ability to make sure that our CIs were reliable. And as you go down through here, I've highlighted several of them. On guidelines 1, we now require each cooperating individual to be investigated at minimum annually. Prior to that, we did not investigate them. And we are looking to make sure that if there's anything that could negatively affect the reliability of the CIs, so we can disqualify them. Additionally, we now require all cooperating individuals who request to participate to be thoroughly vetted prior to entry, and that also allows us to identify anything that would keep them out. And lastly, for that particular DOP, Any cooperating individuals that have not been active for 1 year, we'll consider inactive and we will purge them. To date, we have removed 59 individuals that were CIs. So we are aggressively continuing to monitor that, and the supervisors have been directed to continue to do that. Another division operating procedure that we implemented is DOP 5100-3, involves investigative procedures. And this particularly we put in there to address some of the no-knock issues. And it reads that detectives assigned to the Special Investigation Division, the Little Rock Police Department, will ensure that any time they submit an affidavit requesting a no-knock provision in its warrant, that this type of entry, a no-knock entry, is essential. Prior to submitting the affidavit requesting a no-knock clause to a judge or for approval, the affiant supervisor must review and approve the affidavit. So we now have a supervisor reviewing that affidavit prior to submittal to the judge to make sure that we're going to adhere to our strict guidelines. Anytime a no-knock is requested, LRPD detectives will ensure that the affidavit is supported by strong evidence, supported by intelligence and historical information to include but not limited to clear and articulable reason in the affidavit why the no-knock was necessary. And then we have a key element that we have added. We have a threat assessment that we developed. I think you guys can look at it, it's right there. This threat assessment was developed after we had contacted multiple agencies across the nation. We received some responses back from Seattle, Norman, Oklahoma. We looked at Sherwood, North Little Rock. And basically what that is a SWOT threat reference matrix that we changed and modified to strengthen our affidavits that we submit up for a no-knock. And as you look at it, right through here, it is an Excel spreadsheet that is filled in. The detective submitted the affidavit, goes through and checks each one of these boxes. The formulary that we use right now is that if there is a cumulative score of 4, we're going to request a no-knock. If it's less than 4, then that would be a discretion of the detective whether he would request a no-knock or a knock and announce. This is submitted with the affidavit to the judge along with the additional information that we requested. One is an arrest history to include but not limited to violent crimes to include homicide, robbery, aggravated assault, weapons possession, etc. Current information or intelligence on guns, weapons in the structure, children or other people in the structure if known, any and all available social media pictures, videos indicating weapons, weapon possession, or implied or direct threats of, and indication of the destruction of evidence is a primary concern. And then one of the last key things that we've added, we require now that after the warrant has been executed, that after we get the copy back, this copy of the affidavit, along with the threat assessment, is to be forwarded through the chain of command to Chief Humphrey. He's going to personally review these no-knock affidavits to make sure that we're adhering to our divisional operating procedures. In the event that we are not, then Chief Humphrey will direct it to correct action necessary. The final divisional operating procedure that we revised had more with formalizing a relationship that we typically had done. SWAT is utilized anytime that entry is going to be gained by a mechanical breach or force. We now have formalized in this policy that the narcotics unit is going to work closely with the SWAT as far as providing intelligence with them, to them, and anybody in that unit will have the ability to provide feedback. We will continue to monitor all of our divisional operating procedures. We realize best practices don't stop. They're going to continue to go across the country. We're going to utilize stuff through our CALEA network. We're certified nationally as a CALEA standard agency. We're going to go through our Narcotics Tactical Officers Associations, and we're going to continue to request this information so we can continue to make sure that our policies and our procedures are going to make sure that the affidavits we submit up, both knock and announce and no knock, are strong, and we adhere to the directions of the Chief of Police. With that, I'm going to turn that over to Mayor.
Well, thank you, Captain Temple. I first just want to take this time to share my appreciation with Chief Humphrey, Captain Temple, who has spent a lot of time and effort, and his entire team in making certain that we remain in coordinates to, as we started this administration with our ACT plan, to be accountable, to be clear, and to be transparent. And this is the fruits of that labor of being transparent and accountable. And so I just want to commend you, Captain Temple, and your entire team, as well as Assistant Chiefs Bewley, Falk, and Finks, who are all here today in unison together, as this is a part of being accountable, clear, and transparent. And thank you, Chief Humphrey, for your work as well in leading this effort to bring it to fruition. This is a serious matter. This acknowledges that whenever there's an opportunity for improvement, to lead with improvement. And so what we're saying today is that now we'll have more information detailed in our affidavits, which is great as we move forward and presenting that information to Judge Melody Martin and others throughout that process, but moving from the more detailed information with the affidavits to secondly, to make certain that we now have this threat matrix. And in addition, as Captain Temple was shared, a part of this threat matrix shows it's an extra step of accountability, not only having a sergeant that signs off, but as well as a lieutenant. And then moving from that accountability to even more accountability, that after these affidavits and these no-knock warrants are administered, that it goes up the chain of command within the chief's office to audit, to make certain that we're doing working to our best ability. And so I just want to share my appreciation to the entire Little Rock Police Department in being in coordinate with our ACT plan, which is to be accountable, to be clear, and to be transparent. And this is what 21st century policing looks like. And this is how we can have true community policing as we move forward all together. Thank you.
I just want to say I'm very proud of our department. The men and women of this department have worked really hard. We heard the community. We understand the concerns. We understand that we can always do things better. I do want to thank Captain Temple and his team for working on this. They worked really hard. This was something that was had been put in place before I got here. The momentum picked up, and this is amazing. So thank you for your dedication and professionalism.